Welcome to this special edition of Distinctions for Life. Distinctions for Life is a YouTube channel that provides weekly help for people to... it's been a long week, which is what this is going to be about. I'm your host, Ron Davis, for Distinctions for Life, and every week I come out with a short video about how to help you get what you really want in life. And for the month of November, I am doing the National Novel Writing Month, which is not directly related to Distinctions for Life per se, but I learn a lot from doing NaNoWriMo, and I have learned a lot about productivity and doing nano. And that is what this first video of the actual month of NaNoWriMo is going to be all about. Because there's going to be videos coming out that I recorded last month about things that you should do to help you write. And they are still valid things to think about, forming habits, finding a place to write on a regular basis. But none of that has really been possible for me because last Friday, my whole life was turned upside down, and especially all my plans for how to do nano. So let me tell you a few things that have happened to Ron in the last week before we start talking about my progress in NaNoWriMo. So it is Tuesday, November 4th, and last Friday, which would have been the end of October, it was the day before Halloween. I'm in my office at 9 a.m. reading Characters and Viewpoint by Orson Scott Card, getting ready, getting my mind set on, learning all my stuff to do characters, and I hear a scream from my wife in the other end of the house. And I go rushing in there, and she is laying on the floor, unable to move, roll over, screaming anytime she moves at all. End up having to call 911. They send an ambulance. They take her to the hospital. Turns out that she broke her hip. She was doing what we're calling her morning acrobatics and tried to throw something in the dirty clothes with her foot. Fell over backwards, broke her hip. At the femoral neck, right at the head. And so on Friday morning, about 10 a.m., my wife went to the hospital. And the next day, she had surgery. They put 3 screws into her hip, into that bone to reattach the head of the femur. I saw a picture, an x-ray of it. It looked just like 3 wood screws screwed in there. It's kind of crazy. 3 big, long wood screws. And so that was Saturday, and Sunday was the first day of NaNoWriMo, right? Sunday, I'm supposed to start writing, and I am supposed to start writing, and my goal is 2,000 words a day, yet my wife is in the hospital. I am spending just about all my time up there. I don't have anything sort of... my routine is gone. Even the fact that I may not get there till 9 a.m. and therefore I can get up early and I can do some writing, which I have done a little of that. But for the most part, I'm spending a lot of time up there. Just to continue to tell the story of my wife's broken hip. So she had the surgery on Saturday. They started doing rehab on Saturday. It's crazy. Like, she had it in the morning, and 3 hours later, literally 2 hours later, the PT guy was in there making her walk, or at least stand up and move to a chair. It was kind of amazing. So she started that, and then yesterday on the 4th, she moved from the hospital to a rehab place. At the hospital, because of COVID and all that other stuff, the rule was you couldn't have more than 1 visitor at a time. Although we got away with 2 people in the room, if I was one of them, a number of times. And so that meant that occasionally someone else could come and visit her and let me go eat lunch or take a nap or do some writing or whatever. Now she's moved to the rehab, and at the rehab you can only have 1 person per day visit. So there's a lot more time that I end up spending up there. And this is not how I plan to do Nano. But I would like to point out, and I think I will just share this screen right now. Let's see, this screen. There we go. That is my progress. So on the first day of Nano, the first, with my wife still in the hospital, I wrote 2,064 words. On the next day, Monday, I wrote 2,053. I was down a little on the third to only 1,700, but that's still over the 1,666, which is sort of my minimum goal. And yesterday, I wrote 2,500 words to try and make up for the fact that I had been a little low the day before. And then today, I've had a chance to write once, which is something we're going to talk about, and I've written about 672 words. That took me about an hour that I had while she was in occupational therapy, where I went to a coffee shop near the rehab place. Actually thought I'd have 2 hours, but I ended up only having one. And so I'm still making progress. I'm still hitting my goals, and I think even today I will have that, because she is now spending a chunk of her day, up to 3 hours every day, doing, I don't know if all that, man, I'll bet all that went away, didn't it? Okay, to give you a recap, I've hit my goal, my number goals every day, even though my wife has been in the hospital. And the, man, and needless to say, I'm tired. I'm very stressed out about all of this, and it has made writing difficult. But there are, I'm looking at my outline here, there are a couple of thoughts that have come to my mind. One is, I remember going to a sci-fi con, FenCon in Dallas, a few years back, and I remember because the Toastmaster was John Ringo, and the guest of honor was Cory Doctorow, and I ended up having both of them sign my iPad, and I figured if there were two authors that were sort of at the opposite ends of the political spectrum, those were those two guys, and I wondered if my iPad would combust. Learned a valuable lesson that ink does not stay on an iPad cover, but anyway. Cory was on a panel, and he talked about the fact that one of the things he learned when he wanted to be a real writer was that he does a lot of stuff. He's on the board of EFF. He writes for different magazines in addition to writing science fiction novels, and he does a lot of political advocacy. And he also is one of the founders and people that run Boing Boing, a very popular blog. He does all kinds of stuff. And he said, if I'm going to be a writer, I need to be able to write whenever. So if I'm on a panel and I've got 10 minutes till that panel starts, I can use that 10 minutes to write. And that has been something that has come back to me over and over during this time. If I have just a little bit of time, can I do some writing? And the interesting thing about that is it gets past this idea that I have to be in the mood to write, that I have to have my head in the right place to write, which is another, is the mood stuff. I had, to some extent, I'd gotten past that. I realized that was a crutch that we use. You're not in the mood to write. You just get down and write. And especially with Nano, when you have to write 50,000 words of crap, right? You don't have to write good. You just have to write. So it doesn't matter what kind of mood you're in. Just sit down and start writing. The other, though, was that I have to be in the right mindset. You know, that I have to be in the story. I have to hold it in my head. I have to be ready to go with whatever's next. And when you have this huge constraint on the amount of time that you have to write, you suddenly realize you don't have the luxury of having all the stuff in your head, having your head in the right place and ready to go, because you just don't have enough time to do that kind of crap. So just sit down and start writing, which has been my go-to thought process during this time. I had planned, sort of, my idea was that I would write for 2 hours a day, and I would have a block of at least 2 hours, and I would know what I was going to write when I sat down, and I would write 2,000 words, because I can write about 1,000 words a minute, give or take a little, that I would do that, and that would get me through. Maybe I would break it into 2 1-hour blocks. But I didn't have a lot of 1 hour blocks over this period of time. And so I've had to break it down even further, which brings me to another resource that has given me some insights that I didn't expect when this thing came in. Let's see if I can get that up. Boom. All right. So this book, Pep Talks for Writers, and I downloaded this. It's by Grant Faulkner, and I downloaded it last month because it was free on Audible. And I don't know if it's still free on Audible because, yeah, you're looking at my Audible account. I already own it. It doesn't tell me what it costs. But it was free for Nano, and it is very much aimed at Nano writers. And I've been listening to like a chapter or so a day, and, I wasn't really that into it until I got to 2 chapters that I thought were very valuable. One was Embrace Constraints, and the other was Boredom is Good. And they Embrace Constraints was not what I thought it was going to be, which was embrace the constraints of your medium. So if you're a writer in a particular genre, embrace those. That's not what it was. It was embrace your constraints on time to write. There is an old saying that I learned way back when in college that if you want to get something down, get something done, give it to a busy person. Because busy people don't have time to procrastinate. Busy people don't have time to put it off. When they get a chance to do it, they do it, and then it gets done. And that is also true in this writing thing. If I had all the time in the world, maybe I wouldn't write almost as soon as I get out of bed. That's one of the things I've been doing, is I get up, and my goal is how quickly can I get to my computer. Yes, I'll take a shower and do my morning ablutions, but I want to be at that computer as soon as I can and as early as I can, because of visiting hours don't start till 9 at the hospital. And so if I got up at 6 or 7, I could have 2 hours before I had to be at the hospital. And so there was no fluff for me to take extra time. And that was because I had this constraint, and that got my writing done, which has been valuable. The other place that we have constraints, I had constraints that we would use, was when my wife would take a nap, because her painkillers can finally cut in, and she was able to sleep, and she would take a nap, and I would sit there with my laptop and I would write. Another thing that I have done that I hadn't done before were writing sprints. Now, their writing sprints are a staple of Nano that people do. A writing sprint is where you say, for 20 minutes, I'm going to take a 20-minute sprint and write. And a lot of times, Nanoers will do this with other people, either in a physical place or virtually or whatever. They have writing sprints, and the idea is you're going to spend 20 minutes head down writing, period. And I've done some of that because I'm like, okay, I have some time. If I say I'll write for 20 minutes, then I can write for 20 minutes, and then I can pack up and I can go to the hospital. Or if I've got 20 minutes at lunch, I can write for 20 minutes, and I'm just going to sit down and I'm going to pummel through 20 minutes of writing. And so I've been able to do that, and I found that I can write 500-600 words in 20 minutes. And so that has been very, very useful. Hopefully all of those things are sort of tips and tricks that I learned along the way that will be useful to you. Oh, and the other chapter I liked in Faulkner's book was boredom. And the interesting thing he said is that boredom is no longer a thing. People aren't bored. And why are we not bored? Because we don't have to be. And the minute we get bored, we pull out our phones and we hit some social media site, some news site, something, Reddit, Facebook, any of those things, Twitter, and we start doom scrolling, and we don't have to be bored. The problem is that if you're a writer, you need to be bored, because when you're bored, your brain starts making up stimulus. It starts making up stories for you to think about, or the story you're working on, you start thinking about it. And therefore, you need that time of boredom. So that's another thing to think about, is the fact that we don't have boredom and everything else. All right, so how has the book been going? Well, let me pull up a cool looking picture for my book back from the Nano site. Not that this is in any way, shape, or form necessary, but is going to do it anyway because I like to look at the pictures. In case, for those of you who may not know, and if you watch the video this far without knowing, that's not what I wanted. I am writing a sort of space opera-y kind of thing called The Adventures of Space Girl Red. All right. And we'll do it this way. All right. The Adventures of Space Girl Red is the story of Space Girl. She is sort of, my idea is sort of a pin-up, kitschy, pulpy sort of story about this girl literally goes around in a flying saucer with ray guns and has adventures all over the universe. And so that's my story. That's what I am working on. And like I said earlier, I have been hitting my there's the cover. Hitting my word goals, and that's all good. As we've been going. So, The Adventures of Space Girl Red is going well. Like I said, I've got about 8,000 new words written at this point. I think there's a little over 10,000 total because I'd written a few scenes ahead of time. And that's all been going. The plot has been amazingly developing for me. I was a little surprised by that. I'm very pantsery on this one. I used Rule 4 of the Pixar rules, which gives you this really basic outline of what a plot is. And let's see if I can find that particular thing. Anyway, it's like 6 lines of description of what your book's plot is. And that's really mostly all I had, and an idea of this concept of a space girl and the fact that there were ones of different colors. And that was kind of where I started. And I knew that blue and red had some form of antagonism to one another. I didn't realize blue probably wasn't, well, blue did not end up being the villain, even though when I was creating this concept back in photography, blue was the villain. Now she's more of a rival, sort of a sister and a rival to the main character, Red. I've had scenes happen and they go along, and there's just a couple of fundamental questions that I ask myself when I'm ever doing a scene. One is, how can this scene do more than one thing? Can it reveal something about character? Can it reveal something about the world or the universe? Can it start something that's going to get paid off in a future scene? Can it connect one thing to another thing that maybe are not the thing that it's doing right now? I don't know if any of that makes sense, but always asking, can this scene do more than one thing? And secondly is, what does connect this scene to the next scene? How are you going to go from one to the next? So those are the two fundamental questions I ask when I am actually writing. Surprise or not surprise, shouldn't have been a surprise, but was a surprise, is how much world building I'm having to do in the middle. Both pro and con. The characters say things and create entire new races and planets. This is very much a story about a universe with a lot of inhabited planets and a lot of weird aliens. And I'll be like, oh, well, she's going to go to planet X where they have a world heart and it gets stolen. And who lives on planet X? Oh, plant people. Oh, great, plant people. And then, like, what does a plant person look like? What does a plant person act like? And who stole it from them? Well, it can't be plant people. It's got to be someone the opposite of plant people. Okay, it's going to be mechanical pollution people, mechanical robot people. Anyway, and so, like, just like that, you'll create a whole new race, a whole new thing. And the problem with that is that it happens like that, but you have to have a better understanding of what that thing is you just created. Like, what is Zoran, the mechanical people's planet? Do they have a language? Can I translate that language? Can my spaceship translate that language? What are they using the world heart for? What is it? What is a world heart? Oh, there's world hearts. Where did that come from? Why did the planet people have a world heart? And when you take it away, they don't have power anymore. Oh, it's because somebody gave it to them. Oh, now I've created a whole race of ancient people from the past that gave people things. Supersonic technology. So there's a lot of world building, and I know that at least one day I ended up having to write like a couple hundred words on sort of the backstory of something and the technology. So Space Girl is in a flying saucer, and the flying saucer has two kinds of drive, impellers and repulsors. And then I'm like, okay, well, now can you do FTL communication? If you can do FTL through portals, sort of hypergate kind of faster than light, it's like you keep having to come up with technology and you got to explain it and you got to have limits on it and all this other stuff. So that was one thing. The other thing that I did that's world building thing that I don't think it's a mistake from a reader's point of view, but it's sort of a pain in the ass from a writer's point of view, is for the plant people. One of the things I learned from Orson Scott Card's characters and viewpoint is like sometimes all the characterization is that you need one of a particular kind of being. And the plant people have a bunch of different races. So they basically have cactus people and oak people and rose people and kelp people, right? So those are all sub-races of the plant people of Planet X. And I've decided there's just going to be one of each of those that are minor or walk-on characters. So I need a name for them. So I go look up the scientific name for oak trees, and it's Quercus. And cactuses, it's Calliophysis, which is a big long word. And I make those the names of the characters. Well, now every time those characters talk, I have to write those big long words, and that was probably a mistake. But luckily, they're not very big characters. They come and go. They're not central to the plot, so I don't have to write them a lot. So what else did I have that I learned in this? So yeah, I've already mentioned the fact that I started building races, and when I'm building a race, I often start with a concept for the race and not so much like, a sciencey reason or any kind of thing like that. So so I had plant people, right? Like I had plant people. I didn't have like lots of, like every plant didn't get its own people. Then I had the mechanical robot people, and then I had collectors, which are sort of collectors of ancient artifacts, which are this is more like a cult or a religion that goes around and collects things. And they're of all different kinds of races. So there's that. So I sort of have like these concepts for entire races that happen. And then the space tech, which is tropolific. That's a word I invented just for this. It's tropolific. In that if I have to invent something, I want it to be tropey from that retro period of Pulp Fiction, where she carries a ray gun, right? She doesn't carry a blaster. Someone said, why don't you carry a blaster? I'm like, because blasters are Star Wars, and that's way too late. No, she carries a ray gun. She may have disruptor rays or death rays, because there were lots of rays back then. She's in a flying saucer, and then there are rocket ships, and everybody's kind of amazed that these people have rocket ships. Some people have rocket ships. There's killer robots and robot armies and flying monkeys. I haven't got to the flying monkeys yet, but they're coming very, very soon. And so that's where the whole thing is today. And it's been a crazy, crazy week to do, and it's not getting any easier. For instance, my car, let's see, this was last Monday. I can't remember which Monday it was. I think it was last Monday. I rolled the passenger window down and it wouldn't go back up. And so you can't really drive your car. You certainly can't go and park it somewhere with the window down. And I happen to own a Tesla, which means the nearest service center is in Fort Worth. I live in Abilene, Texas, and that's about a 3-hour drive. And when I went to schedule an appointment, they're like, oh, it's going to take you 2 weeks to get in. We're not going to be able to, you can't set an appointment until it wasn't going to be next Tuesday. Or was it going to be next Tuesday? I guess it's going to be next Tuesday. And all this happened on last Monday. So I haven't had my car all week through all of this stuff. I've been driving my wife's car. And now they called me and said, hey, and I put in my little note when I scheduled my service that I could use it at an earlier date because I can't drive the car. And they sent me a thing yesterday and said, can you come in on Friday? Actually, they said, can you come on Thursday or Friday? But I knew I had to do this, and my wife was moving to rehab, so I didn't do Thursday. So I said, yeah, I will come in tomorrow, which means somebody else has to watch the wife, and I'm going to be out all day. So I have to be in Fort Worth by 11, which means I have to leave the house by like 7, which means I'm getting up early. And when am I going to write? Well, back to the earlier part of this live stream, you write when you have the time. I will write when I'm supercharging that car, and I will write when I'm waiting for them to fix it, which could be a few hours. So tomorrow could be a rather prolific day for words. I know a lot of the next scenes that are coming, so I don't have to do as much like figuring out how things connect. And I could spend a lot of time writing during those downtimes. But you just have to say, I'm going to take those times when you get them. That's the biggest lesson of all of this, is when you get time to write, write. And I think that will do it for today. I'm trying to do these every Thursday at 2:10, I think, because I did some at 2:10 last time. I started this one at 2:10. So every Thursday at 2:10, I'm going to do a live stream telling you what my progress is on NaNoWriMo. If you would like to follow me on NaNoWriMo, I've picked up a couple of buddies. Do that at the URL that's currently scrolling across the bottom here. And has been in some of the other videos I've written about, all the videos about NaNoWriMo that have come out on Distinctions for Life, which will continue for the rest of November, have that same URL in the description. So thank you for watching this in the future. Thank you for anybody who's watching it now, which is nobody. And until next time, this is Distinctions for Life, where I help you get what you really want in life with small changes that make a big difference. Until next time, I'm Ron Davis.